So, as I've said before, one of the big reasons why I keep on covering this reform nonsense and complete, well, incompetence is because next year it's probably the big council election. Um, Pretty much most councils, if you didn't have yours last time, you will have yours next year. And one of the big reasons why I keep on covering a lot of this stuff is so that when we get to next year, and trust me, we've only been doing this 2 months, and yet I was honestly, and I am still shocked that I can literally have practically almost every single day something new about some insane, ridiculous notion or activity that reform are doing in these councils. I am generally shocked that it is this much, that I can just do this content almost practically every day, because it is just their pure incompetence on it. And it is all on them. And the big two that I think everyone are watching, um, especially like council wise, are of course Kent and Durham. Now, why those two in particular and why not others? Well, these two in particular, they have a reform majority, pretty much meaning reform can do whatever it wants on these councils. No other party can stop them, stand in their way, or they have to like hope that they get a hung vote and that the chairman that they've put the chairman hopefully in place and that he'll obviously side with them. There isn't that worry, shall we say. So these two councils in particular are, of course, going to get a lot of attention. Kent, obviously, at the moment, is the first council going through all this Doge stuff. We were expecting something big at the last council meeting, but again, didn't happen. We've got to wait until the next council meeting for that to happen. But as always, when you look at what the council has been saying, what they've been saying on that front, sounds like they're going to try and make as many cuts as they possibly can to a lot of statutory services. And they are trying to find clever and inventive ways to say, see, we're not cutting it. This is just all about efficiency. So we're going to have a good look at Kent today, because it seems that in particular there has been a lot of stuff going on, as there are other stuff. And thank you very much to the people who do post stuff about what is going on their reform council, because I do look at them and I do see if there is enough content about it to make a video about. Sometimes there isn't, or sometimes I'm just going to face it, it's not that interesting, other than this guy's being absolutely incompetent, or it's clearly no idea what they're on about. Like I say, I do try for a bit of variation, honestly. But thank you very much for those people who do post that stuff. Like I say, please do keep on posting it. And if something does go off in your council, please do let me know. Please do signpost me to either the meeting minutes or like the video of the session where it is going on. Like I say, I do want to see this stuff, because honestly, it is really difficult to try and keep an eye on what's going on in all these councils sometimes. And I am inevitably going to miss some stuff sometimes. So please do keep on sending this stuff. And good news, I have reached out to Councillor Conditor, if you may remember, from Warwickshire. I am trying to get some time where we can sort some stuff out with him. Maybe get him on the channel and see what is going on in Warwickshire, because I think it'd be very, very interesting to get him on talking about what's going on there. So as always, thank you very much for all your people watching. Like I say, clicking the like, clicking the share button, etc. All that stuff does help the channel. Like I say, ring the bell as well to get notifications of when we drop a new video. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page, the Buy Me Coffee link, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there is the YouTube membership button down below as well. So thank you very much to everyone who does help and support the channel that way. So let's crack on then into today's story covering Kent. So this comes from the Kent and Surrey bylines, the title of Threatening Letters and Cancel Committees Inside Reform UK's Kent Takeover. So, roller coasters can, of course, be very exciting, thrilling, and, of course, lots of fun. But when they stop, you usually get off exactly where you started. Reform UK is now 3 months in charge of Kent County Council, have for many been a very much white knuckle ride, as the now turquoise tornado turns the Garden of England into a complete carnival field. But how far has the council moved? And this is what a lot of I've been trying to get across, because sometimes we've done stuff and covered stuff where it's like, oh, Reform UK haven't done anything, or they haven't been able to do stuff, or they're not doing stuff, they're not running the meetings or proposing any policy yet, as far as we know, anything like that. So surely, even though they are in, they're not doing anything. Surely that's good. No, that is just as bad. That means that these councils are pretty much frozen, because sooner or later these people have to make decisions. They have to decide on stuff. And next year in particular, where we get round to budget stuff, so about February, March time, that's going to be very interesting, where we start to see these people who are now in charge of these massive budgets try and actually set them. What are they going to do with these budgets? What are they going to make cuts to, etc.? That is going to be a very interesting time when we see that. But the fact that they are doing nothing on this front means that a lot of councils are just frozen in place. Decisions haven't been made, and that they are still hoping that the wheel turns over. But eventually, there will come a time where they have to make a decision. And because they aren't having these committee meetings, because they aren't having these council meetings, or they're not talking about this stuff in proper detail, bad stuff will happen because of it. So just because they aren't doing anything, it's not a reason to celebrate. So let's continue on with this. Well, so far, not so far. But that is mainly because so many of the new reform councillors have little to no idea of what they are doing. But on the other hand, it hasn't been all dull. The scale of reform victories last May was, of course, astonishing. Farage's crack regiment, of course, captured 57 of the council's 81 seats, completely usurping the Conservatives, who had held power in Kent since the dawn of time, or at least the past 30 years. So large was the Tory wipeout that it now even failed to even become, of course, the main opposition, even ending up with 5 seats, the very same as the Greens. The Liberal Democrats doubled their numbers from 6 to 12. Labour fell from 7 to 2. And while the Independent Residents Association representatives, of course, nearly disappeared entirely. So that just shows you how much in control they are here. And when things start to go wrong, they've got no one else to blame here but themselves. Suddenly, of course, reform was now in total control, and understandably, now an air of triumph hovered over the 57 reform councillors as they now trooped into County Hall to elect their own group leader. In a now cost-fraught contest, former BBC journalist and Taekwondo martial arts practitioner Landon Carmen fought her way, of course, to victory. Still, Carmen's election as leader may not have now quelled others' ambitions. More on that later. And oh boy, this is something else that we're hearing at the time when these things were happening, like who was going to be leader. A lot of people were putting themselves forward to be leader, and a lot of people in some of these councils were not pleased where they were chosen over other people. And this seems to have, shall we say, upset a lot of people, not just here in Kent, as it says here, and we'll get on to later. A lot of other people as well. Like I say, I would not be too surprised if some of those people on the Reform Council in Warwickshire are very upset that a 19-year-old is now their leader, chosen over them. So, Reform councillors, of course, arriving at County Hall, waving, of course, the big promises, and their party's core belief for local government is now mired in widespread waste and public money being chucked about. Reform, of course, promised to slash spending by rooting out inefficiencies. National leadership created the Elon Musk-style Doge, or Dogle, the Department of Local Government Efficiency. And of course, Dogle's plans for Kent were rolled out almost immediately. Well, sort of. Like I say, they barely got anything, and it's the next council meeting now, where it was meant to be the council meeting just had, where it was all meant to be published, like this is what we're going to do, but oh no, next time, guys, next time. They made a big song and dance about it and everything. But anyway, back to this. Kent County Council staff also received a very threatening letter from Carmen demanding that they cooperate with the cost-cutting or face disciplinary action. Again, that that's totally not going to appear in any potential, lawsuits or, discipline, like other meetings or anything like that if they get sued for, like, firing people. But the question, of course, marks were now immediately raised, of course, in the legality of this threat. The letter was, of course, not signed not only by Kerman, but also by Farage, Reform UK's national leader. This puts them, then their now national chairman, Zia Youssef, also sent out on Reform UK headed note paper. Clearly, neither Farage nor Youssef have any legal status as far as Kent County Council is concerned, nor any right to threaten staff on how to carry out their duties. And here's the thing, that note, that letter could come back to haunt them if they start getting rid of staff, because staff could say, I have been unjustly fired. Look at this, letter that was sent by Reform UK, signed by, the council chairman, but not only that, but Farage and Youssef as well. That could have big legal ramifications, maybe down in the future. So, where, of course, this legal lapse was, of course, due to very much bravado or incompetence is unclear. What did become increasingly clear was that most of Kent's new reform councillors had zero experience of local government, not just down in Kent as well. We've seen this across all these councils. And they, of course, have very little understanding on how it operates or what they should or should not do. On the other hand, had they even served on councils before? Funding, of course, councils is the council's biggest headache. According to the Financial Times, Kent Budget Report had a particularly ominous ring about it when, and of course, warned that the council does not have the capacity within its reserves to fund the impact of delays to difficult policy decisions or failure to deliver on the savings now within services. In other words, big money troubles ahead. And it is not just here. There is a lot of other councils that have been very, very similar states. Again, this is right down to austerity that this has been done. And again, they're now the ones in charge of it. When these councils go bankrupt, it is on these reform people. And of course, that Tory, government, but most on these people as well. One, of course, Reform's continuous repeated claims was the previous run Tory council had been completely thriftless and imprudent on their spending resources inappropriately. Even the Tory opponents, though, reject that charge. Sevenoaks Liberal Democrat leader Richard Stanley dismissed Reform's promises to cut waste, and excessive spending is now based on false claims that Kent County Council was wasteful. But years of austerity have now seen local government finances slashed by over 40%, so there was just simply no waste or fat left to cut, he insists. And that is very true. That is, unfortunately, the same for most councils right across the country. So Kent County Council currently, of course, has a budget totaling of 1.6 billion, but only 5%, of course, of that can be spent on discretionary services. So most of the funds are now earmarked for essential issues such as education and adult services, which means, according to Stenfield, that there is no money for Reform's big promises to fix the county's potholes. Repairing the county's potholes is, of course, expected to cost over £900 million, more than 56% of the entire budget. Early indications that, of course, Kent County Council's problems may be now too daunting for the inexperienced reform councillors surfaced with the tearing up of the council's procedural timetable. Again, this is something that we've seen before. A string of committee and council meetings were even postponed or cancelled now as the new councillors struggled to actually get to grips with their responsibilities. But these problems then continued into June, where 4 out of 5 committee meetings were also cancelled again. So these are places where decisions have to be taken, and if you just keep on cancelling these, you're just kicking the can down the road. As it goes on to see, critical decisions, of course, need to be taken. But these could, of course, not be taken because of the repeated failures to hold these essential meetings. Like I say, just because, don't breathe a sigh of relief because, thank God they're doing nothing. No, them doing nothing is just as bad. I have to keep on hammering that in because there are a lot of people who just assume that, oh, reform aren't doing anything, so that must be a good thing. At least they're not doing something. Oh no. Oh no, them not doing anything is just as bad. As I keep on trying to hammer home to people, because a lot of people labor under that assumption. Then, even as, of course, the inability to now organise these critical meetings became ever more evident, local Reform UK chiefs were then hitting out with other headline-grabbing headaches. Less than a month after elections, the Kent Reform Group numbers were then reduced from 57 to 56. This followed the arrest of Daniel Taylor, who represents Thanet's Clifford ward. On Reform UK's election literature, Taylor, of course, described himself as a local businessman and a devoted family man. In early June, he was arrested on 3 criminal charges, including threats to kill his wife, also sending an offensive, indecent, obscene, or messaging messages to her. He denies all charges. So, one Reform member down. Reform, of course, then withdrew the whip. And Taylor now sits as an independent. Inevitably, there will also soon calls for him to resign to allow a by-election. Heading, of course, these was the Thanet East Labour MP, Polly Billingdon, who claimed that the people of Clanfordville deserve a far better councillor than accused of threatening to kill his wife, and Reform cannot get away with saying that they've suspended the whip while happily allowing him to continue voting with them. Again, very true as well. As long as he is there as a councillor, he will probably end up voting for them. This is why I've said before, you've got to watch independents. Not only just them, but Conservatives as well on your local council. Are they going to side with Reform? History says that it's probably going to be more the independents than the Tories, but the Tories may also do that as well. They may also, as we saw in Warwickshire not too long ago, just abstain and let things go through. Meanwhile, of course, the council leader Coleman was now unsuccessfully trying to put the brakes on agreed plans for the wholesale reorganization of local authorities right across Kent. Again, these have already been decided. And it's just like, they can't stop this. As much as they might try, they cannot stop this. Before the elections, Kent's 12 district borough councils, plus the Medway Unitary Authority and Kent County Council, approved to participate now to create 3 or 4 unitary authorities. The hope is now to provide simpler, more efficient structures which can offer all local government services. The final proposals are, of course, due by November. Remember, they cannot stop this. So you're going to go from 12 district councils down to 3 to 4. Again, this is all to make it far more efficient. This is mostly because of depopulation. You do not need that many district councils to cover all this when you can have 3 or just 4 easier unitary authorities. But why are Farage and co against this? Because they will lose seats. Most of these places, why they are so against this stuff, they are going to lose seats. They're going to lose councillors. They don't want that to happen. And that is why they're against it. Even though, again, they're all about efficiency. They're all about, getting rid of waste. Why are they not for this? So Kent's, of course, Reform Group quickly gave hints it may even oppose the reorganisation idea. In her first speech as the council leader, Carmen spoke of the spectre of local government reorganisation hurtling down the tracks at quite an incredible speed. I'm not entirely convinced this is the right thing for Kent, she said. I will be making it now a priority to try and find out as much as I can in the coming weeks and months to help formulate our response to the LGR. In truth, the final decision on reorganisation is completely out of our hands and in Whitehall's. But to no one's surprise, Carmen now attempted to try and kick the proposals down the road, claiming that a November deadline was almost impossible to meet. She pleaded for it to be postponed until March. She got the very short shift and a hard no from local government minister Jim McMahon, who told her to get on with it. Like I say, these local government reorganisations been going on for a while. This isn't new. And if you got elected, this is something you should have been aware of. And most parties were more than aware of it and were running on their proposals of what they intended to do about this. Reform, of course, didn't have any such proposals for this. Hence, they have no idea. So, back to this. Council staff also working from home was another early target aimed from claims from reforms as Doggle chief Zia Youssef. It was, of course, costing Kent County Council 100 million a year. Those figures proved complete nonsense, according to Conservative councillor Sarah Hudson, who explained people have always worked from home. It is not just a COVID thing. For instance, social workers who are on call can't have a normal 9 to 5 office life. Again, very true. And then this is where it gets to the leadership rift, because one of the big things going back to the UKIP days was in these local councils, in these local, parties, they never really sat right with each other. There was always fighting, infighting, jostling for position. It was really bad in the UKIP days. It seems to have now been copied over into Reform, and this is very, very much on this. So the Lib Dem opposition leader, Anthony Hook, also suggested that Yousaf's real agenda is to try and deflect from the fact that Reform is now failing to get to grips with the real issues facing the council, such as the crisis in adult social care and, of course, the poor state of local roads and transport. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, it is not sweetness and light between Kent's Reform councillors, and this is where it gets really fun, because this is some new information that I haven't heard before either. So, as mentioned earlier, Linda Carmen secured the leadership of the group against a very much crowded field of contenders, one of whom was Sevenoaks rural northeast councillor Maxine Fothergill, who has now shared on social media appealing to very much undermine her leader's position. Evidence of this came when Fothergill's decision to repost an attack against her own group leader on a LinkedIn social network. The attack, of course, was posted by another LinkedIn subscriber known as Peter H., who described himself as a security consultant manager coordinator. This 247-word article begins with the suggestion that Carmen's appointment should be reconsidered because she is too inexperienced and not up to the job. Those accusations have now been reposted by Fothergill, the Graveshead-based estate agent and, of course, property manager on a LinkedIn page, although the article has now been reposted reactively recently by other county elections. It is, of course, tucked away down at the bottom of the page. The attack on Carmen also continues, warning that Reform UK needs to act before it is too late. When, of course, this reported article on Fothergill's LinkedIn page calls for Carmen to be replaced with someone like Maxine Fothergill. Again, infighting already. That ultimately, as it has happened in the past, will emerge. But that is, to be honest, is quite new, and that might be quite fun to read later on here. That could be interesting to read later on for sure. But back to this. So, further, of course, early evidence of disharmony within Reform ranks erupted with the first sacking of the county council's cabinet. Of course, we covered this as well. The post-election after Rural South Councillor Bill Barnett was put in charge of Kent Highways and Transport. In June, Farage arrived at County Hall to condemn the budget for transporting disabled children and to and from school as a croak beyond belief. Within hours, the transport chief was then flung out. It started with, of course, the council leader, Carmen, trying to make it look like mutual consent, claiming that Barnett had now stepped down. Lies, replied a very much angry Barnett, who told Politico, is a complete lie. And again, we covered this at the time when it happened. There was no mutual agreement that we left. I walked out in the office and basically into an ambush, where I was basically spent 50 minutes saying how terrible I was. After that, the Turquoise tornado. Can anyone care to have a go on the Dodgems? Yeah, that is just their first 3 months. And that is just some of the big stuff, because as I've said before, there's a lot of smaller local level stuff that happens as well. It's not all big explosive news sometimes. Sometimes it's just small stuff. So it is difficult to try and make a video out of that small stuff sometimes. But I do obviously pay attention to it. So I do know there are people that do post about that on some of these videos. So please do post about that. Like I say, it is very, very difficult to try and keep a constant eye on what goes on in all these councils. But I do try my best. So thank you very much to those people who do post. And like I say, if you are from Kent, please do let me know what you think about all this. I think the lesson is go out and vote, because remember, about 77% of you in that last local election did not go out and vote. So as always, Thank you very much for all your help and support. Please do click the like and share button on your way out. And of course, don't forget to ring the bell as well so you get a notification when the new video drops. And of course, there are links down below: the Patreon, Buy Me Coffee, YouTube membership, thank you button, etc. All that good stuff. So thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.